Kuhn is the fullback with the first and goal. Kuhn gets the call. Pyle trying to make his way in for the touchdown. What a great second effort. Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. I said so, I keep big bills up in my heart on the dirty like blood, so ain't got no twist in my head, but I'm still dreadful.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, fantasy excellence, acting as your lead blocker, even in early March. And I got to tell you, this is a special Tuesday Wolf and Truth edition. You don't get this very much, but man, a lot of news has been snowballing down the mountain today. Started out as a little trickle, and eventually it was just too much. We could not keep ourselves from going on the air to bring the public who are thirsty for this sort of knowledge, everything that's coming our way. I, of course, am your host. The Wolf of Roto Street is with me. I'm Not the Truth Jones. How you doing, Wolf?
I'm doing great. As you said, I was leaving school today, and I got home, and CJ was like, do you have any reactions to this? What's your thoughts? And I was like, to what? And I open it, and Aaron Rodgers signs. Okay, big deal. Russell Wilson, like everything just kept piling on one after the other. And so since I got home from school, just been updating the rankings, compiling some news, some data points, and hit you up. And I knew you were ready to go. Emergency podcast here to cover all this news, get all the updates in. And this is all before free agency is coming next week. So this is like a little treat, a Christmas bonus to get all this extra little pizzazz in here for fantasy right now. I love it. There is no offseason truth.
I know.
It's a cliche to say.
It's such a cliche, but it's so true. There's no offseason.
So
and,
true.
And I had commented a little bit, and I don't want to step on these stories too much, but Aaron Rodgers basically was on, he was on the ESPN front page when I looked on it. He was on there, and then like within 2 minutes of me seeing him on there, and I don't know how long he'd been on there before, you guys started blowing up my phone about Russell Wilson. And within a couple minutes, he was off. That has to stick in his craw a little bit, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why 2 seconds later, conveniently, that's actually not the contract. I have not given the full deal. Shut up. Oh, he can't stand a fucking second not being the main man in the spotlight. I despise him. We'll get to him in a second. But yeah, absolutely. What a busy day. And yeah, I mean, never mind Calvin Ridley yesterday. We have a lot.
We're gonna give Mr. Ridley. We're gonna give the talented Mr. Ripley his due. If you haven't already, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Now, Wolf, I was looking at our YouTube page and it says 1.99K subscribers.
Who left us?
Right. I mean, right. Well, we have a certain set of skills, and we will track you down.
We will find you, and we will force you to rejoin.
Right. We will force you to rejoin and bring a friend.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, give us a like, give us a love, whatever currency your social media platform uses, give it to us. We want it. We want that and then some. We're going to get right into this. And, of course, the big story of the day that kind of pulled the rug out from Mr. Diva Rodgers himself, Russell Wilson, going to my team, Denver. Denver's been the rumored spot for, 5 years probably. Any good quarterback, they've always just been like they're a quarterback away. And we have no idea whether that's true or not because they've never actually gotten a good quarterback. So it's the easiest thing in the world to say every year, oh, they're just a quarterback away. Can never prove them right, can never prove them wrong. They got a quarterback now. This is not a guy, Russell Wilson, who is in his prime, I would say, but he is a huge upgrade over anybody that they've had on the roster since Peyton Manning before his his shoulder went, whatever the hell happened to him. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was a great tweet today, like looking at the different quarterbacks that the Broncos have been cycling through since Peyton Manning. They had those 3 years, and the last one, as you said, the shoulder just completely shot, but still got it done.
And he won the Super Bowl, right?
And he still somehow won the Super Bowl. But, man, it has been just a complete and utter shitstorm of QBs, the history. 2010
Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, I got the list right here.
Hit it. Let's have it.
2011 Tebow. 2012 to 2015, Peyton Manning, Simeon, Keenum, Flacco, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, and now Russell Wilson. What an absolute just
and there was
Brock
Osweiler saw some time there. Let's not forget Brock Osweiler.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we could probably date that back another 10 years, and it would still have you mentioned Paxton Lee. There's just so many random names that have cycled through there. But maybe they were just a quarterback away. They certainly were in 2012 to 2015 when Manning was there. They had some great seasons, obviously a Super Bowl in that run there. But now Russell Wilson. So what's the fallout here? It's so many things to think about. We'll start with just the Broncos. Our next take will be about the Seahawks, what the fallout is over there. I bumped Russell Wilson up 2 spots, not because I think he's necessarily with better weapons here. In fact, DK and Tyler Lockett doesn't really get much better as a wide receiver pairing than those two, but because of how much more I think he's going to be throwing. In his 10 seasons so far in the league with Pete Carroll, the Seahawks have ranked either 31st or 32nd in pass attempts in 5 of those seasons.
That's
half
so
of
dumb.
his career, this top 5 quarterback in the league, in my opinion, maybe not anymore, we'll see, but certainly across these last 10 years has shown he has a top 5 quarterback upside. He has been in the bottom 2 in pass attempts, which is just an asinine, like ridiculous misusage of talent. And to kind of further drive that home, the highest they've ever ranked Seattle with Russell Wilson in pass attempts was 16th in 2017. He led all quarterbacks in touchdowns and fantasy points, and he only ranked 16th in pass attempts, and that's what happened. So goes to kind of show you the ceiling of this guy. He's been insane when they actually finally use him. And so even just a modest bump to like 15 or so would be huge. And under Nathaniel Hackett, their new offensive coordinator, he's not the pass bonanza, Andy Reid style offense. 16th, 24th, and 15th in pass attempts with Aaron Rodgers, the MVP these last couple of years, but very efficient passing attacks. That was also, not really him calling the plays. That I think, that was more the head coach calling the plays there. He did uncork it with Blake Bortles the 4th most times in his 2nd season calling plays. So if he's going to let Blake Bortles whip it 4 times around the yard, 4th most pass attempts, he also had a 13th. So I do think, top half of the league is what my expectation is for pass attempts. And that alone is enough, even with the weapons downgrade, to bump Russell Wilson up for me. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. The way that you're talking about Wilson being used over the, really his entire career reminds me a lot of the way, interestingly enough, that John Elway was used for about the first 8 years of his career, where it's like, okay, this is like the most talented quarterback in the league. He can do anything. Let's run on the first 2 downs with our crappy running backs every single time. And then if we're within spitting distance in the 4th quarter, hopefully he can win it. It was just the most, and they still went to 3 Super Bowls doing it because he was so good, even though they lost them all. Wilson, I believe, has been criminally misused in his career. He's not the only one. He's a great example of how, you could be the most talented guy in the world. You could land in the wrong spot. And, look, Seattle's had success. The guy's won a Super Bowl. He should have won 2 Super Bowls. And even so, I still think that he has not reached where he should have talent-wise. He's great. He's a huge upgrade. Even if if the Broncos are a middle of the NFL passing team, we're going to be seeing a ton more attempts. And that's also going to probably result in a ton more rushing yards from him too, because he is good at escape. Man, he didn't even really run the last couple years. Remember, we were like, oh, he's a rushing quarterback. And in fantasy, that's so key. And you weren't even getting those yards out of him.
And Hackett does love the bootlegs. He loves the play action. He likes getting his quarterbacks. You see Rodgers on the move a decent amount in the pocket. So I think this is going to be a great fit in this offense. And as you mentioned, just a slight bump in volume, even if it's not number 1 in the league in pass attempps. Again, 16.
Let's say it's like 10 or 12 or something like that. We're going to see big numbers.
Points as the 16th fantasy, 16th most attempts in the league. It's insane what this guy can do.
I'll say this from a real football perspective, that division is a nightmare.
Right? Mahomes, Herbert, even like Derek Carr and the Raiders made the playoffs.
The Raiders are no joke, man.
Insane. Insanity.
I mean, that's tough. So it's like, it's not like, oh, Wilson's there now, they're the front runners. It's like, I don't know, they're maybe second,
3rd, 4th,
maybe second, if everything falls right. I don't know.
Absolutely.
So that's a gauntlet right there.
Right.
Let's talk about some of his weapons that he is inheriting in Denver. Let's start with the king of separation himself, Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah. He bumped all the way. Both receivers, actually. All the receivers got at least 20 spots higher, in my opinion. The king of separation.
They're going to catch up, though. I think that you may end up higher on these guys than some, but like these guys, are you saying they got bumps from your list?
Yeah, that plus
so
20.
This isn't relative to the ECR.
Exactly. No, it's bumps up. I know the ECR will eventually catch up. So that plus 20, I know I often will do above ECR. That's actually just how many spots they jumped up. So like Jerry Jeudy was my wide receiver 43. He's now my wide receiver 23. That's how big of an impact having a guy like Russell Wilson.
That's real.
It's very real. And I know we were joking, Duck calling him the best separator in the league and all that earlier. But he is a very strong route runner.
Yeah, he's really
one
good.
One of the smoothest butter type routes So he does gain some really nice separation. And I am very excited to see a guy that finally can deliver that rock to him. So maybe this is just what he needed. I think we've all been kind of a year too early. It's just the quarterback. He was a quarterback away. So I have Jerry Jeudy just a spot above Courtland Sutton because I'm also very high on Courtland Sutton. I love Courtland Sutton. He's a contested ball guy. He's a deep threat guy. And ultimately, he was the main recipient of deep targets these last couple of years with the Broncos. He saw 29 of their 60 deep targets, nearly half of them that last year. Tim Patrick saw the other 17 of them. So those guys accounted for 70% of the deep targets, Sutton and Patrick. So Patrick also gets a big bump up. Just thinking about Russell Wilson and what he does well, pretty much everything. But I just have those wet dreams of those moon shots over Tyler Lockett. How many times have we seen him just uncork it and just like perfectly drops it right in the basket to his receivers down deep? So it's Sutton. Between him and Jeudy, I really don't know who I like more. I think Judy's like the obvious, the more talent, the higher draft capital. Like I probably would take Jeudy, but as I said, again, wide receiver 24, wide receiver 23.
I don't know. I like Jeudy a lot. I'm freaked out by the injury that he had last year.
I know.
It looked so bad. And I mean, it ended up not being as bad as it looked, but I was like, oh, his career's over.
Yeah. So, I know. He ended up returning. He didn't do a whole lot.
He was good. I mean, I think we'll see. I don't think there's a great reason to like him more than Sutton or less. I think that it's kind of like the Woods Cup thing last year, where obviously there was a right choice, but it was almost a coin flip for most of us going in. And
I think that's a really good comparison too, because you think about what happened with those two guys: QB injection, big upgrade, two really solid talents at the wide receiver position. And one of them, if it was going to be one of these guys, I do think it would be Jeudy in terms of like who would be the cup of those two. He just has that natural separating ability. So I like that comparison a lot. You just brought Matt Stafford and bam, both these. Robert Woods was a top 12 receiver before he got hurt. I wouldn't be shocked at all if both of these guys have top 15 seasons on them. In fact, I know we're going to talk about the Seahawks guys in a second, but I would take, if I'm drafting today, I would take either Jeudy or Sutton over either of the Seahawks guys, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett.
That's it. That's a hot take. That's interesting. And we'll talk about that in a second. Last weapon we need to talk about on the Broncos, Albert O, Noah Fant being sent to the Seahawks as a part of this, I'm assuming. And so you've got Albert O bumped from tight end 30 to tight end 12. I'm assuming that's a combination of Wilson coming to town and Fant hitting the road.
Yep, exactly. Wide open tight end gig. Now, he's going to be behind Jeudy and Sutton on the target poll, but this is a guy that's 6'6" and runs a sub 4.5 40, just insane athleticism. He got hurt in college, but otherwise was likely to be a first-round pick given his measurables, given his dominating rate, all the stats you look at for a tight end. He had all of them, and he suffered a bad injury. They got him in the 4th round despite having fought just because of how far he fell, and now he's the main guy. Now, they do have a lot of cap space here. I wanted to kind of lead with that. Even after trading for Russell, they still have about the middle of the pack in terms of cap space, $16 million left, so they can load up around him. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see them go after a tight end, maybe even Rob Gronkowski, something of that nature, right? Bringing the guy, and then suddenly Albert O gets a big bump down. But if he's the main guy, we've seen Will Dissly, like Luke Wilson, just nobody's. Jimmy Graham led the NFL in receiving touchdowns one year with Russell Wilson. He loves his big bodies in the red zone. He pinpoints it so well. And Albert O, 6'6". That's a big body right there. So I really like him as well. I just as a wide receiver weapon, KJ Hamler, I know he's been gotten hurt the past couple of years, but this guy's blazing 4.3 speed. And we talked about those moonshots Russell Wilson lobs up. Wouldn't be shocked at all. I have been going big in on D. Eskridge in early drafts from over there in Seattle. I'm swapping those two now as a great last round dart throw. KJ Hamler, should he stay healthy, really does have that separation ability, that deep skill set to blow up. So especially in best ball drafts and things like that, if you're looking for a last round dart throw, KJ Hamler has shot up another 25 spots on the big board as well. All these
guys, with what we've seen from injuries recently, not recently, just forever, but it's like we forget every single year that people get injured all the time. You really have 4 legit receivers. That's great because one of them's going to go down, 2 of them are going to go down, and you hate to all of a sudden be reduced to what we saw some of these. What were some of the wide receiver cores that people were sending out at the end of last year, where it's like you literally hadn't heard of a single person on the team?
Exactly. Well,
So they can avoid that. I mean, they got legit guys. So
in my finals, I was deciding between like Josh Palmer and I forget the last name. It was just ridiculous. It's like that's how it happens in fantasy.
Right.
You somehow have to get down to this crunch time. So any of those guys could step in at any point and make a huge splash. Why don't we move on over the people left behind?
Right. Let's talk about the Seahawks as the other end. A lot of people, at least short term this year, think that this is not great for the Seahawks. I have seen some analysis of this trade that says like long term, this is like a huge steal for them with all these draft picks. I don't know how I feel. I haven't dove into it enough yet to know. But as far as this year, you have the insanely talented duo of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who have fallen 13 and 16 spots respectively. You had them at 12 and 15. You now have them at 25 and 31. Talked about this a little bit, but you can elaborate if you want. Noah Fant, you had him as tight end 21. You had him as tight end 12. He's now down to 21. Not really a factor at that number.
Yeah, I just expect, we talked about how gross this offense was for Russell Wilson. Again, bottom 2 in the league in over half of seasons in pass attempts. That's not going to suddenly go up once a top 5 quarterback's out of their grasp. So I expect a even more run heavy, more establishing of the run, more just gross, slow, sluggish pace, trying to grind this out. That's what Pete Carroll's always done with a great quarterback under center. Never mind whoever it's going to be. It's obviously tough to analyze exactly what their prospect
We'll see.
Without knowing who the quarterback is. Right now, it's Drew Lock, which would just be pure puke. Maybe they draft a rookie. Maybe they go up to Jimmy G. I don't know. But either way, it's certainly not going to be as good as Russell Wilson, no matter who walks in that door, at least not initially, maybe long-term. I don't know. But which one do I prefer now? I think the bigger hit's going to happen to Tyler Lockett. Think about so much of his production on those insane catches and throws that like no duo would ever create other than those two. I don't think any of that trust is going to exist. In fact, you look at last year when Russ missed those 3 games, we saw Lockett drop by 5 points a game. DK Metcalf actually went up. Now, maybe that was the sinner narrative where he was having his orgies and Russell Wilson, faithful in Christ. And on that note, too, Courtland Sutton in his bio does say God-fearing. So that maybe a little bump over Jeudy.
I know. That's like the Cup Stafford breakfast narrative.
Exactly. Bible study narrative. Courtland Sutton and Russell Wilson.
What if all of a sudden we start seeing guys at Denver start getting real religious?
Yes. I will bump up whoever starts going to church.
Anybody who like
the mood.
we see carrying around a Bible at training camp is getting a 5-spot
bump up. Yeah. If only we had known about the Breakfast Club. Look for Bible study. No doubt about it. I love that call. But I do think DK is kind of built to withstand whatever quarterback. In fact, 2 of his top 4 games last year happened with Geno Smith, which so, DK, it's just one of those situations. We've seen it before. A big quarterback downgrade. It usually still sustains one receiver, but almost always dissolves in anybody else around him.
Especially a receiver like him. I know that he was a disappointment last year in general. It just seems like you almost have to work pretty hard for him to not produce. Right. Like your team, not the other team. I just feel like it actually takes effort for DK not to get his just because, look at the guy.
Exactly. And he did have that brutal finish, as you were alluding to, with only 1 game inside the top 36 games, wide receivers in his last 9 games. Only once did he finish in the top 36 receivers. That's bad. It was a really rough finish, but ultimately he did, as I said, his production was better without Russell Wilson than what it was. I'm not sitting here saying I wish Russell Wilson's gone and now I think he's going to have a better year, but he's the type of receiver that can sustain this loss, I think at least, better than a Tyler Lockett, who's relying on the deep shot, who's relying on that tight pinpoint chemistry in the red zone. So I think Lockett takes a bigger hit, but they both, as you can see, I think this whole offense takes a humongous hit no matter who's under center. And that also then downgrades Noah Fant, who might be the 3rd at best weapon in this offense. If there's any winners, I still don't think there is because of fewer red zone attempts. I
think they're going to be really bad. They're going to be really bad this year.
They're going to probably they already lean so hard on the running game. They might even put more of an emphasis on it. So whether that's Chris Carson coming off the neck surgery, whether they re-sign Rashad Penny, it's still going to be sluggish, gross, again, low scoring offense. So I'm not sprinting to get to them, but if there's a single winner for Seattle, I guess it might be the run game. But yeah, Noah Fant, huge. At first I was like foaming.
We can't.
Wilson.
I think we can't. We need to wait and see who ends up behind center for them.
Right.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, they were not good this year, and I cannot imagine they'll be as good this year as they were last year.
No.
All right, moving on. We said 5-10 minutes per story. 19 minutes in, we're moving on to our second story. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, both back in Green Bay, as honestly we always kind of suspected they would be. Rodgers gets a 2-spot bump going up to the QB8. Can I ask a question? Where did Rodgers finish in fantasy QB last year?
1 second. I'm pulling up the banner. So I have both those. I have what Rodgers and Adams both finished. Rodgers. So that's kind of what the note here is more of the same. Last year, Rodgers was QB7, was the QB5 the year before that. Davante Adams, wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 the past 2 years.
The reason I asked this is so he's at 5, then he was 7. You've got him up at 8 this year. That's incredible, and that's very telling as far as fantasy goes. And we say this all the time, but I cannot reiterate this enough. Aaron Rodgers won the MVP. I'd say deservingly. He had 37 touchdowns, 4 picks, and many thousands passing yards. And he was the QB7. So what's the difference? The difference is it's all about the running.
There's tons of it.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a huge deal because those are just absolutely godlike quarterback numbers. And he's QB7. So that for fantasy purposes, keep that in mind. You need a guy with running upside if you want to be top 4, whatever the hell we're looking for. With that said, Adams, I mean, he's a top 2 guy no matter what, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Bumped him right up to 6 overall on the big board. He already was my wide receiver 3, kind of no matter where he went. He was going to be a top 3 receiver for me, unless it was pure hell. But this is the best case scenario for both Rodgers, for both Adams. More of the same, run it back, as we said, top 2 in back-to-back seasons. He's been this stat blew my mind. Over his last 30 games, he's been a top 12 guy in 53% of those. And I know that doesn't seem like
that's amazing, man.
A wide receiver, that is just absurd consistency. In fact, over those 30 games, he's fallen below 10 PPR points just once.
That's just because you're not talking top 20, top 25. You're talking top 12. That's exactly. Elite. So I mean, a little over half the time, he is one of the 12 best guys out of the I don't know how the hell many, like 120 guys in the league. So he's like top 10% of all wide receivers that play over half the time. That's
32 the past 2 seasons, over 30 games. Right. Just absolutely
mind-blowing. Like Cooper Kupp did that, I think, this year. I'll be interested to know if he can carry that over into next year.
I don't see any reason why not either. He's averaging nearly 11 targets a game these last couple of years. It's just it's like pitch and catch out there, the way those two link up. I had the hookup this year. I had that connection in fantasy, and as much as I hate rooting for Rodgers ever fucking frick, as we started the beginning of the show with, they have such a absurd second level of chemistry that I don't think we really ever see. There's very rare duos.
I'm trying to think of
that year. Like there's every now and again a couple greats link up. Jerry Rice. They certainly have a few duos in the league, but the way they the ball's already left his hand right before Adams has broken the route, and it lands right there on the sidelines, especially in the red zone. I don't know. It's just so beautiful to watch. I'm just excited that we get this again. It's the perfect situation.
Again, it reminds me of Stafford and Kupp, except they've done that for 1 year.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, like, they do this 4 or 5 years. I'll be like, yeah, that they might be the best combo, or at least in the conversation ever. But the thing about Rodgers and Adams is, I mean, this is a movie we've seen before.
Yeah.
It just keeps happening. And this has happened many times when there was no other really almost NFL quality receiver on their team.
Yeah.
And so everybody was just like, well, he's going to throw to Adams. And he's like, you're damn right, I'm going to throw to Adams. And he catches it. I mean, he's the best 1 yard weapon as far as a receiver I've seen.
Goal line back. Like he really is.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Exactly. There's no covering it. I guess the one issue I have with this is Adams got franchised, and I know he's already talked about wanting to be the highest paid receiver and how he's upset about franchise tags. And if he suddenly holds out, and then I can imagine Rodgers would use that to milk his own self, and he'd hold out, and we could see that devolve.
What would the highest paid receiver entail? Because he is making a little over $20 million for this year. Now it's 1 year. Does he want a long-term deal and be the hiest paid guy?
Yeah.
Is there any receiver making more than $20 million a year?
He was pining for $30 million a year. And honestly, who says he can't deserve? I mean, he deserves it at this point. Like, Just give him the money. So I'm hoping they back up the Brink trucks. I hope he gets paid because I don't want to see a holdout.
I don't want to see a Le'Veon Bell situation here, dude.
Yeah. But I'm assuming they're both back. I'm assuming they're both playing. And in that case, you're getting a top 2 seasons out of Adams. You're getting a top 7 season out of Rodgers. The only reason you kind of hinted at the reason he's not in my top 7, even though he's kind of a lock for it, is that the ceiling's just a little bit more capped given he doesn't run all that much.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to story number 3. Calvin Ridley of my fantasy team.
I'll let you take this one away.
Suspended indefinitely, but certainly for all of the 2022 season. Why, you ask? We know that Ridley had been out dealing with supposedly mental health issues. I can't confirm or deny that except taking his word for it. But one of the things he was doing while he was out was gambling on a little pro football. Bet $1,500 on a few games. That's frowned upon. Ask Pete Rose. And, Mr. Ridley will not be playing in the NFL next season and maybe not ever. We'll see what happens. I have no idea. But, if you're planning on – if you got him in, Dynasty, or we're planning on, being sneaky and taking him up high next year, you might want to rethink your strategy.
Yeah. Early best ballers that took him, RIP Calvin Ridley. That sucks. Your team's already saying, thankfully, I was not going in on Calvin Ridley early in these best ball drafts, and rightfully so at this point. I did not see this coming, though. He was, last time we saw him out there for a full season, wide receiver 5. The talent has been undeniable. He is a great player, and he was a wide receiver 5 when, I don't know if you've seen some of the clips where he kind of like slows up on touchdown runs, and it's like, he was definitely betting on this game type of thing.
So you think
he should have scored, and he kind of stalled.
You think he's done this before?
It's bad. Ultimately, there's a couple of takes here. I guess a preface to all this too is just it is pretty messed up that, not pretty messed up, it is extremely messed up that he gets a full season for gambling. Josh Gordon gets suspended for 6 years for weed. And then Ray Rice gets 2 games.
And Greg Hardy, all those
Greg
guys.
Hardy, I'm sure you've seen those
Kareem
tweets.
Hunt, Adrian Peterson.
Just so messed
up.
up.
You're right. And I mean, I'm making fun of Calvin Ridley here, but the consequences are out of whack.
Exactly. Completely out of whack. Like that, punishments fit in the crime. It's just a complete shit show. NFL needs to be better and do better. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a year. I think it's messed up to, be betting on a game that you might be involved in.
I would love it I would love to know his bets.
Yeah, I know it involved the Falcons. It was a parlay involving the Falcons is all that kind of came out. It didn't go the specifics. My guess is he's betting on him to lose. I hope he was for sure, because he probably won that one. But yeah, really messed up situation. Hopefully we'll see him in a year from now and it will all be blown over. But what does this leave us with? Atlanta's receivers. Ridley's gone. Russell Gage is an unrestricted free agent. If he was back, this would be really interesting to him.
This is a sinking ship. None of this matters. Nobody on Atlanta matters. Maybe Kyle Pitts. But I look, Matt Ryan's a year worse. Their best guy on their depth chart by far, Ridley, gone. Gage looks like he's gone, and it's not like I'd be throwing a party for him anyway. Look, this is a disaster.
It's absolutely. Olamide Zaccheaus, the next one. He's a restricted free agent.
Who?
Tajay Sharp, whoever that is, unrestricted free agent.
Tajay Sharp, we were high on him 4 years ago for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he beat somebody up in an alley.
Yeah.
And we haven't really heard from him since.
I know. So if Gage does resign, he did average nearly 15 points per game once Ridley was out.
Wow.
So that could be, he was a top 12 receiver sneakily over those last 10 games of the year. In fact, he was one of the highest owned guys on best ball rosters that made it to the championship weeks because he did have a really nice end of the year, especially in PPR league. So if he returns, that would be intriguing. But the only piece that's left standing at this point is Kyle Pitts. Now, he also did have his biggest game of the year with Ridley there. I think he benefited greatly from having Ridley to draw number one attention. We saw when number one corners went on Pitts, he started to get shut out. Maybe I expect year 2 to be that much better and another step forward for the guy. He already broke rookie tight end records, even with underwhelming touchdown numbers, tight end 6 in fantasy. So he had an okay year. Especially, but just relative to expectations was kind of a disappointment, especially without Ridley there. So I don't know that Ridley being gone is suddenly this huge upgrade for Kyle Pitts. I think he benefited from that field stretching presence from somebody commanding the number one corner attention. He had that 27-point day against the Jets. That was his biggest game with Ridley on the field. So I do think it's going to be another step forward for Pitts, but I just think their number one receiver, we don't even know who's the number one receiver at this point beyond Kyle Pitts, because he's certainly not on the roster because none of their receivers on the roster are under contract right now. So who knows what's going to happen. But we will see. I'm sure they'll draft somebody. They're going to probably pepper free agency, but their cap situation is really shitty too. So it is just going to be a ugly, ugly situation unless they get rid of Matt Ryan and maybe just completely tank. We'll see. But yeah,
I think maybe I'm overthinking this, but I'm also thinking at it from like kind of the mental, emotional, psychological point. And it's like, I would think it would just be deflating for a guy like Pitts to see this team and just know that they're going nowhere. And it's like, who knows what kind of like heart or motor or whatever he's gotten. If he's just like, I'd rather die than not give it my all. Who knows? It might be hard to get up and give it your all every single week, just knowing you're going to suck all the time. I hope not, because I'm pulling for the guy. I'd like him to do well, but Atlanta just seems like such a horrible place.
I do think Arthur Smith too. He kept them pretty competitive last year in this pretty shitty situation. So I'm hoping the head coach can kind of keep them rallying up and going. We'll see. But yeah, it's just brutal. And I know, I'm sure you're just sitting there like fucking Ridley, like this again. Like it's always something with this guy.
Well, I mean, it hurt me last year. This won't hurt me this year, but it's more, I'm just like rolling my eyes completely. And also it's like you listed Josh Gordon as the other guy on that list that, for something that we don't think is bad at all, that has missed like 5 or 6 years of his career. And we saw how great Josh Gordon was. And it's like, he was gone for a year and then we're like, oh, he's going to come back. He's going to be great. And it never happened. I mean, so it's like, I look at Calvin Ridley, all this talent, all this potential, fantasy aside, he potentially had an awesome NFL career ahead of him. Then he's out for half a year. Now he's out for another year. There's no guarantee at all that this guy's ever going to come back and be great, much less come back at all. Who knows? So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for him, because I'd hate to see his career like end this way.
I think that's a great point too, Nat, because dynasty-wise, I'm seeing a ton of people with the take, go buy now, you have to take the year and eat that. But I'm seeing some of these.
I don't agree with that at all.
Traded like Jalen Waddle for it.
No.
What? Like,
that's
what
crazy.
is this shit? Like, what are you guys thinking? Yeah, I get like if you can get him for a late third round, like rookie pick, some sort of speculative person, whatever, okay, it's worth it there. But if you're giving up a major haul, I get the idea of buying low. Maybe you buy low on DK Metcalf, this young freak with all this negative attention.
That's different.
That will eventually rise. But like you said, there's no guarantee we ever see Calvin Ridley on the field again. So everybody's so obsessed with negative information comes out about somebody. Go buy this player now. I get it works out sometimes, but this is one that I think Josh Gordon's a really interesting comparison. I'd be really nervous. Like, you could have bought low on Josh Gordon 30 times and been wrong.
We did buy low on him for like 4 years.
Exactly.
No, I'm just, I'm a big NBA fan too. And I've just seen too many guys, whether it's mental health problems or off the field issues or drugs or whatever, that go away and they're suspended for a while and they come, and it's like, I'm not going to say they never come back and are awesome, but I would say more often than not, they do not. So exactly. I would not be like, oh, let me get all your Calvin Ridley stock right now. Like I'm extremely skeptical and very worried.
All right. I'm with you too. Midway through, if you guys don't mind hitting that thumbs up button as we move on to our next story. If you have a question, comment, get it on in there. We will, of course, hit those at the end. We appreciate you guys being here on a random impromptu Tuesday. Thanks so much for being here. Let's continue forward.
Mike Williams, another guy that was on my team and for like 3 or 4 weeks was really like, I was just could not stop talking about him. He has re-signed with the Chargers. Get this, 3 years, $60 million. Okay. Now Davante Adams is making a little over 20 million. Like I want to say like 20.5, something like that. Mike Williams has got it for 3 years. Mike Williams. What? Like, what am I missing? Come on. You know more about the ins and outs of this stuff than me. I'm just going knee-jerk reactions here. The eye test. What am I missing?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't think you're missing much. It reminds me a lot of Kenny Golladay, like the fake alpha.
Oh, God.
The big body, the leaping ability. He's got everything you want in your Monster X, but it never gets all the way put together ever. And it looked like we finally had that as with Mike Williams, as you alluded to, those first few games, 22, 33 points. The wide receiver won through the first 3 weeks. Looked like we had that breakout, and they had talked about peppering him as the Mike Thomas style X in Lombardi's offense. So it's like, okay, maybe we can see it. But then, 2.1, 4.7,
stop it.
3.9, 7.8. Like when he was bad, he was really bad. He was losing you weeks. And
it
was one of those awful conundrums where you saw then 36 points all of a sudden, as soon as you bench him after a 4.7 outing.
Right, and that 36 put him back in your lineup for 4 or 5 weeks. It's
four
like
and a half points again. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's that ultimate brutal cock. He's like, you can't bench him, but you can't play him, and you never get it right. And I don't see any reason why this would be different. I mean, they did give him a massive deal, so clearly they value what he's bringing to the table. It obviously, in terms of Justin Herbert,
it's an investment in Herbert as well. But it's like he's not even remotely the best wide receiver on his team.
Oh, not even close. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Like, if I were going to rank all the wide receivers in the league, like, I don't think he's top 20.
No, he's in my, especially as a talent, no. And fantasy-wise, certainly not. I believe this bumped him up 2 spots to wide receiver 35 for me, just because you're going to get those blow-ups, but you're also going to be dealing with some shit. So, best ball-wise, I don't mind him because he might win you plenty.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, he had 6 games above 26 points last year. That's nice. That's a solid.
Right, and in best ball, the 2s and the 4s don't kill you, but
you have somebody else stepping up for you. Right. You don't have to make those decisions, but it is a headache in seasonal leagues, and I don't see any reason why. If he suddenly regains that magic of those first 4 weeks, then okay, then maybe he has just a crazy big season. But I'm not going to be going in. I'm lower by 5 to 6 spots than the ECR, even after bumping him up with this news. To me, it's just Herbert, the inconsistencies with Williams don't really matter. It's just nice that he has all the weapons he had last year back, and maybe they add some even more after. I mean, he lost Jared Cook, whatever. So I think Herbert, locked in as my QB3. It's going to stay that way. And
really,
it was going to be
Herbert
that way
as your QB3?
Yeah, only Mahomes and Josh Allen above him.
I don't know about that.
Do you have anybody that you can definitively say you'd have above Herbert?
Definitively, no, but I'm going to look at those lists and look, it's March. I'm on a podcast now, but I haven't done the deep dives that you've done.
I'll give you the
that gives me a bit of a double take, though.
You tell me, Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert?
I would probably lean Herbert.
Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert?
That's really tough.
I know.
I would probably lean Burrow, but I could see you saying, I don't think you're crazy for saying Herbert. I'd probably lean Burrow.
Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Rodgers. These are kind of I'm just going down the list of my next men up. Any of those above Herbert?
I feel like he and Rodgers are kind of comparable. I've kind of lost a lot of faith in Lamar. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that. I know that's trendy to have lost a little faith in Lamar.
Yeah.
Lost a little faith in Lamar. Who was the other guy you said? Who was the other guy you said?
And then Dak Prescott.
Nah, I'd probably rather have Herbert. All right. So I'm at lowest, I guess I'd have him at 5.
4 to 5.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So all right, you're not.
It sounds crazy. It's at first Herbert at 3, but
right. 3. I mean, 3 is really elite company. But yeah, you're right.
He's a beast. So I think
and he's going against kind of the grain that I said, where I was like, how important the upside running is. Maybe we're underselling Lamar, Kyler because of the running. I don't know.
Yeah.
But my instinct is I would rather have Herbert.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that I didn't even think of this before the pod, but we bring up Russell Wilson going to this division. You're looking at shootouts after shootouts after shootouts right. Potentially. Right. Even Derek Carr and the Raiders, if they take to Josh McDaniels' offense here, I think it is a pretty nice fit. We could see a lot of points because none of those defenses are overly scary at this point. The Broncos probably have the best of the division. But yeah, I'm just liking that division for fantasy purposes. And adding Mike Williams to there, just another piece to keep those big high flying games for sure.
We'll see. All right, Chris Godwin, franchised by the Bucs. I saw his salary comes up around $18 million. This is the second year in a row he was franchised by the Bucs, and the deal is if you're franchised for a second straight year, they got to give you 120%, something or a 20% bump of what you had. So that takes him. That's why he's not as high as Adams. Adams at 20 something, and Godwin doing quite well for himself at 18 for a year, whatever. What do you think of this move? Think they just kind of had to do it?
Yeah, I mean, they speak so highly of Godwin at the combine. The GM saying it's hard to imagine our offense without Chris Godwin, and so they said they didn't want to have to franchise him. They were trying to hammer out a long-term deal, but ultimately they had to do something to make sure they had this guy. That's how key of a cog he is. And you look at the production: wide receiver 2, wide receiver 15 and wide receiver 6 and fantasy points per game the last 3 years. He's been nothing but a bona fide stud. So it's one of those tricky balances now, though. It's like, well, who's the quarterback? We don't know that right now. So how do we rank Godwin? I have him at 21 just because I love the talent and I love how much they use this guy. I do like the fact that Bruce Arians is still there. They've been number 1, 2, and 1 in passing yards the last 3 years, 3, 2, and 1 in pass touchdowns, top 6 in 5 straight years in pass attempts. So this is an aerial assault. But that's also been with Tom Brady. You also had, Jameis Winston just.
Yeah, but it wasn't only the last 2 were with Brady. So when you're saying like 2, 2, and 1 or whatever the numbers you gave, like my first thing was I was going to jump out and be like, well, that was Tom Brady. But it actually precedes Tom Brady. So yeah, that is encouraging for somebody that you're going to put in there. Who is the guy now? Blaine Gabbert?
Yeah, Kyle Trask, I think. I don't know. I'm hoping they draft somebody, trade for somebody. We'll see.
It's not a great draft. Right.
No, it's a terrible, terrible draft for quarterbacks. Malik Willis might be the most intriguing of them, but from Liberty, who knows, an unknown in that sense. Maybe they reunite with Jameis. I know Bruce has already kind of shut that down and said, I don't think that's a good idea. Because it didn't work.
I also don't think it's a good idea.
Ultimately, for fantasy, it'd be a great idea.
I mean,
they led the NFL.
I guess it all depends what your options are. I can sit here and say like, oh, that's a bad idea. And then it's like, why? Well, who would you roll out there, asshole? And it's
exactly
like, well, maybe Jameis is the best.
I could, who might be fun there? Mitch Trubisky. Like, I know that sounds insane.
I saw a stat on Trubisky the other day that I this is going to piss me off because it's just going to sound like I'm rambling about nothing. I don't remember what the stat was, but it was like some really like elite high stat. And it was like, there's like 6 guys in the league that have achieved this thing. And he was one of them. And all the rest of them were just like these, like, utter and total studs. I'm going to search for it and find it at some point. Is it possible that Mitch Trubisky, that we've slept on him a little bit, that we've kind of, is he better than we think he is?
I doubt it, but I mean, he did have 11 wins under Matt Nagy. Now, granted, that defense was historic and like everything kind of lined up well for him there, but winning 11 games with Matt Nagy as your play caller, we just saw what a dumpster fire that motherfucker is.
They went 11-5 with Mitch Trubisky. And
yeah, how crazy is that? And he started 14 of them and he won 11 of those. So like,
it's insane. How did that happen?
I don't know. Again, the defense was a huge part of that, but at the end of the day, you still need to win the games. And he did. So I would love to see.
He's average. I'm in. Let's do it. Let's Trubisky to Tampa Bay.
I'm trying to think what another stat similar to that. He ranks like top 8 in points per game, fantasy wise, across his last 25 starts. So he's like over 20 points a game. So you get Mitch Trubisky with these weapons and Bruce Arians just chucking it around offense. That would be fun. I think we'd get some. It'd be like Jameis 2.0. Mitch Trubisky could rope that thing down the field. I was at a Patriots game, the one where he hurled like an 80-yard missile last play of the game, and they caught it on the 1-yard line and didn't get in. I don't know if you remember that game. I was there at Soldier
I do remember
Field,
that.
But this guy has a rope and he can run, and that would be fun. But all this to
let's
say,
get people talking. Let's get some buzz. Let's get some buzz going for that.
Trubisky to the Bucs. That would be a fun fit. So
or to anywhere.
Yeah. My prediction was he's going to go to the Giants and follow Daboll.
Oh God.
And, take over for Daniel Jones. So we'll see.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No,
that's not like I'm a big Trubisky fan, but like, the Giants are where people go to die.
Yeah.
All right. Well, number 6, we don't have to spend as long on these. Dalton Schultz, the tight end 3, you told me before the show. Franchised by the Cowboys. What's that run? What kind of salary is the tight end franchise tag guy?
11 million, I believe, is the average number. So not a bad payday for Dalton Schultz. Who's not even drafted in most leagues last year, was a waiver wire darling, and as you just mentioned, was the tight end 3 in total fantasy points. He ran the 3rd most routes among tight ends last year, 6th most tight end targets, 10th in yards per route run. The guy had a great year. He was awesome after the catch. He was such a great 3rd down weapon, just moving the chains. I think he's the sneaky potential biggest winner, besides maybe the Broncos guys with Russell Wilson, of this day. Him returning and Blake Jarwin having a hip surgery as well, so he's going to be kind of out of the picture for a long time. His NFL career is in jeopardy right now. I really think Dalton Schultz, tight end 3 last year, but now Amari Cooper is probably going to be removed from that equation. There's nothing in his way for.
We got to talk about that too. We don't have to talk about it today, but I do think that's worth talking about.
Absolutely, him, Gallup, all the rumblings. I think we'll do a combine episode on Thursday or whenever we get back live and talk about both veterans that have been talked about and also the rookies that we saw. But Dalton Schultz, definitely the best case scenario for his value is returning to where he was used so voluminously and so well. I mean, put up such great stats here.
What was that word? Is that a word?
Voluminously? I don't
Is
even
that
know.
a word? I mean, I get the gist of what you're trying to say, but I just have never heard that in English.
A high volume roll is
There
what I
you
was
go.
going for, and it
It's a
just kind
target
of
hog.
rolled off. And I hope that's a word. It might be, it might not be, but you know what I'm
We
saying.
got to put it in the glossary.
The
that's for sure.
voluminous Dalton Schultz, voluptuous and voluminous for Dalton Schultz here. But yeah, a great role. Kellen Moore is back too. I think, that's kind of one of the underrated movements of the coaching carousel here is he was interviewed for a lot of head coaching jobs and still didn't get it, despite back-to-back years leading the NFL in points and pass attempts. And all that is just great news for this passing attack. And especially if you remove a big mouth like Amari Cooper's, that's just that much more volume for Dalton Schultz to potentially gobble up. So I love his situation returning here to the Cowboys, right back into my top 6 tight ends ahead of TJ Hawkinson. I'm all in. I'm ready to just eat all of the Dalton Schultz I possibly can.
We don't have to talk about this now either, but I'm interested in your thoughts on, what kind of value Cooper still has and where you think a good landing spot for him would be.
Yeah,
but we'll talk
that
about that.
I think he still has plenty. He's young. Like he's only 27.
I was going to say 26, 27, right?
Yeah. So, he's still got plenty of good years, in my opinion.
All right. For today, last but not least, Mike Gesicki of the Dolphins, also franchise. Is he getting about the same scratch that Schultz was getting?
Yep. That $11 million, that's the average of the top 5 salaries. So, solid there. He went 780 yards, 73 catches. That was really nice. Quality usage for the tight end spot there, but only 2 touchdowns. That was a little bit discouraging.
So he's like a 4 or 5 catch, like 50 yards guy.
Yeah, exactly.
9 or 10 points in a PPR league.
Yep. The thing with Gesicki, though, he has some insane athleticism for his size. That's kind of always been the thing. And it was just like an inconsistent role for him. He wouldn't be in on blocking scenarios, and nor should he have been. That's not his strong point. But 4th in tight end targets last year, 5th in tight end receptions, 8th in tight end receiving yards. And this kind of highlights that athleticism I'm hitting at. 3rd in total air yards. So they like to use this guy deep. They put him in the slot. In fact, only Mark Andrews was in the slot more often than Mike Gesicki. And that's kind of the good comparison. They take Andrews off a lot. So when you look at total snaps, it's like 70% for Andrews, but all of them are routes being run. That's kind of the same case with Gesicki. And now you got Mike McDaniels coming in. We obviously know from the 49ers, they love George Kittle. They like to use him in the deep passing game. I'm not saying Mike Gesicki's George Kittle, not even close. George Kittle's the best tight end in the league.
Where do you have Gesicki now?
So I had him like right outside my top 15 at first. And now that I know he's back with Tua, who loves him, who's religiously peppered tight ends since he's gotten there. Now I know he's with Mike McDaniels, who might use him in this George Kittle light type of role. He's right back in the top 10. I think I have him right at tight end 9 in my rankings coming up.
What's your top 5 tight ends in order?
Top 5 tight ends in order. Obviously,
Kelsey
at number 1 is Kelsey, but Mark Andrews. I shouldn't say obviously. Mark Andrews was the number 1 tight end last year. I'm
guessing you're going Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, or Pitts.
Kittle, then Kyle Pitts, number 4. He bumped right ahead of Darren Waller at number 5.
Okay. Right.
Dalton Schultz 6, TJ Hawkinson 7, Goddard 8, Knox 9, and then Gesicki 10. Comes in right after Dawson Knox.
I respect that top 10. That makes sense.
Yeah. The only tricky one for me there, because I really, really like Pat Fry too. I don't know.
You do love, but we have to take your analysis of Pat Fry at least a little bit with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. A little biased teaching with his parents.
Little biased.
I
also like Pat Fry, but also like the Steelers. I don't know. I don't know how much this has to do directly with Pat Fry, but I really love the coaching staff. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I love the coaching staff there. I just don't know who the quarterback is quite yet.
So and that we've found that is important in the NFL.
Quite important for pass catchers, yeah. So
right.
A big fan of Gesicki, though. I'm happy this worked out, that he's going back there for at least the year, because we know Tua loves him. We know he's got a good play caller. Dalton Schultz was the biggest winner from the tight ends, in my opinion. Well, Albert O. Big tight end day, though. Albert O goes right behind those guys in that top 10. He comes in at 12 right there. So big leaps into the top 12 for 3 guys that were outside my top 12 entering today. All 3 of them are now inside the top 12.
We'll see about Alberto. I'm gonna have. There's a lot of mouths to feed. We'll see what happens.
There is, and like I said, they have a lot of cap space, so I would not be shocked at all to see them bring in Gronk. To see them bring in. I'm trying like the free agency pool. We'll go over it because we have the free agent show coming next week. It did take a pretty big hit with Gesicki and Schultz now gone. We have Gronk. We have Evan Ingram Like David Njoku got franchised, so he's even off the table. Zach Ertz is there. So there are some like Ertz kind of had a nice rebound last year. He really went off when he went to the Cardinals.
Yeah, but I'm not mortgaging the farm to get Zach Ertz.
No, exactly. The two biggest weapons were Gesicki and Schultz, and they're now removed here. And Gronk, Gronk, if he still does what he did last year, if he's still in that type of shape, Gronk is still a very dangerous player potentially. But he also might retire because Brady's gone. So who knows? So yeah, big
Gronk,
for
Gronk has all the money in the world. If he's coming back, it's because he just love of the game or something like that. I kind of don't think we'll see Gronk again, but we'll see.
Well, he just said he wants to play with Burrow. So, and since he's a free agent, so maybe he goes.
How much would that suck if you're like Uzuma or something on the Bengals and Gronk's like, I'd really love to play with Burrow, and they're just like, shit.
See, yeah, exactly.
They're gonna trade me.
Well, I'm done. They've already said the Bills also have interest. So Dawson Knox, I have him at 9 here. That would be a huge hit to Dawson Knox if Gronk goes there. That'd be a brutal hit. And Knox had such a great season, so you'd hate to see that happen.
Is Gronk just going to go on a tour like for the next? Because a lot of times you see in like the NBA, like people ring chasing at the end because like guys that haven't won a title. Well, he's won his titles, so now is he just going to do like a merry-go-round of like, I'd like to go play for this great quarterback for a year, and then this great quarterback for a year, and like he just so then he can just say he's played with all of them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
exactly. And they said that the Cardinals might be interested in bringing him too. Like Kyler, taking that Zach Ertz role. So if Gronk plays, he's probably going to be a top 7 tight end again, he's going to go to a good team.
Yeah, he's not going to play for trash. That's true.
Exactly.
All right. You made me reconsider my opinion a little bit on that. All right. Let's hit our small mailbag. Thanks for everybody that's actually still with us, checking us out. This is a fun kind of spur of the moment Tuesday show. We're like, we'll get it done in half an hour. It's 51 minutes in. You would have expected nothing less from the Wolf and the Truth. David, hey, Wolf and Truth, I miss you guys. Did you hear the Panthers are open to moving McCaffrey? I have heard that. Where is the best fantasy fit for him? That is an interesting question. We've already had some kind of arguments about our thoughts on McCaffrey. Not us specifically, but when CJ was on, we were talking about different levels of expectations for him. What do you think, Wolf? Where'd you like to see him land?
I mean, it's hard to say leaving the situation he's in, like the volume he's seeing. If you could tell me he'd get that volume on another team, then of course it's the Chiefs, right? Playing with Pat Mahomes, playing in that offense. If you get the volume he's getting with the Panthers and then move him there, but you wouldn't get that volume because they have Mahomes and they have so many other weapons. So it's automatically like the Chiefs always jump to mind, but that's not going to be the case. What about the Bills though? They don't have a running back.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Oh man, like that offense, like Devin Singletary was the number 2 running back in fantasy because
we don't even think he's that good.
And he's not good. He's not that good of a player. Right. So, any decent running back that goes there is going to put up numbers. You put McCaffrey, again, if he's healthy, the best running back in the league, in my opinion, certainly most versatile. He would do some serious damage there. So I would say Bills, Chiefs. You just think of the high-powered attacks, but it's just, it's so tough to think of a better situation than the volume he's been getting with the Panthers. So
agree with that completely. I've been secretly hoping Melvin Gordon gets sent to the Bills so Javonte can do his thing.
Yeah, as long as he's a free agent. So as long as you don't go back, I guess we didn't even talk about that with Russell Wilson. Like if it is just the Javonte show and now you have Russell Wilson at quarterback making this offense that much better. I mean, I
love Javonte.
Mid first round, like, oh man, I don't know, like where you draw the line for Javonte if he's the only guy in this offense next year.
It's so hard to say, man. It's like, I hate to always bring it up these days, but we've seen it. So it's just the injuries, man. Who the hell knows?
He's a horse, though. Like he's
a horse. You know who else is a horse? You know who else is a horse? Derek fucking Henry was a horse.
Exactly.
And he missed like 2/3 of the season.
True.
Anyway, I mean, it's just, God, it's playing running back in the NFL is brutal, dude.
You couldn't pay. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I wouldn't. In my absolute physical prime, when I was actually a very good athlete, I'm not sure I'd last one carry.
No.
Like, maybe I'd just get lucky and turtle up on the first one. So maybe like I'd get a second. I mean, like these guys take such a pounding.
It's insane that they can do this it's like even Frank Gore, who did this for like 15 years.
And now he boxes for fun.
It's psychos. I don't know how they do it.
He's built different. Chris Jason, separation kings. Number 1, Jeudy. Number 2, Quez Watkins. 3, Damiere Byrd. 4, N'Keal Harry. Number 100, Cooper Kupp. Care to give us some context to that, Wolf?
We had a good group chat today where Duck, our boy Duck, loved the Duck, said Jeudy was the best separator in the NFL, and I just kind of chuckled at him. It's like, yeah, the guy runs good routes, but come on, Duck. Like, that's the horrible situation. He sent out a tweet that goes, woof, like this, and it said Jeudy was at the top of this, like, separation per target list. And just to prove it's a meaningless stat, and, like, you should never try to justify any type of case you're making with this stat. Number 2 was, as CJ's putting out here, Quez Watkins. Like, number 3 was Byron Pringle. 3, 4, 5 was Demir Bird. I remember Davante Adams was legitimately 60 on the
60,
list.
right?
Cooper Kupp, who just shattered records, was 49 on the list. Like, so you're trying to prove a point with this stat that is clearly meaningless. Sorry, that's not going to be the case. That yes, I like Jerry Jeudy. You're not going to prove anything to me by telling me his separation per target was number 1. No, sorry. CJ's trying to fan the flames. And get me
well played, CJ.
Thank you, CJ.
Justin Vetter not throwing a pick 6 for Trubisky.
Yeah. If he goes to Bruce Arians, he'll be throwing plenty of pick 6s.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Wolf. In all seriousness, what are the chances that on some of our gambling shows this year we could get Calvin Ridley to come on?
Oh, man. No, there's no chance.
What's the Ridley special this week?
That would be incredible. That would be
the 3-team Ridley parlay. We'd be willing to give him like some small equity in the company if you would.
Absolutely.
Be willing to do that?
I'll give him all of it.
no, don't do that. Not all of it, but maybe a little chunk.
Just a little piece.
Calvin, if you're listening.
It's a good offer.
Charlie, late to the party, but what a week and it's only Tuesday. I know, right?
Insane day of news. Not what I was expecting. Like I said, I got home and opened my phone and see from CJ, like, are you ready to react to all this?
By the way, real quick, Justin just cleared that up. That was the stat. He's the only quarterback that never threw a pick 6. That was what I saw.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I was wondering what
I couldn't remember, but you're right, Justin. That was it.
That's pretty wild because he threw some.
I know. Don't you like in your head? You know, like the Mandela effect, where you imagine, like you're convinced that you've seen something. Like the collective imagination of the world is like, yeah, you saw this, but it never happened, or it was different than that. It's like in my mind, I've seen Trubisky throw like 5 pick 6s,
multiple,
just constantly. Like, you know, him and Mark Sanchez are like interchangeable to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Mahmoud. What's up? Hey, Mahmoud, what's up?
Great
what's up, fellas? How do you like Sutton in Dynasty with the Wilson trade? I like him.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always liked Sutton. I've always been higher on Sutton than most. And this is by far the best quarterback he's ever played with. We saw him have a top 10 wide receiver season with Drew Lock hucking him just freaking nothings into the air. I love this move for him because Russell Wilson's still, I think he's only 36. He's got 6-7 years probably left. He might even be younger than that. I might be over exaggerating.
He's not 36.
He's not 30. Yeah, that was as soon as I said it, I was like, he's probably 32.
I was going to say 32, I think maybe. I'm guessing. I admit, but like, I think it's more like 32. Right.
Yeah, I think we got at least 5 to 8 years, and Sutton's obviously young himself, so they just locked him up to a long-term deal. These guys get 4 to 5 years together. I would not be shocked at all if Sutton's a top 15 receiver for 4 to 5 straight years right now. If I had him, this is a huge win for his dynasty value, in my opinion. Absolutely.
Russell Wilson, by the way, is 33.
33. Okay. Gotcha.
And Charlie, so many ex-Pats or Panthers in Buffalo too. Maybe not as crazy as we think.
Yeah.
Let's start beating the drum for that, huh?
McCaffrey to Buffalo. Whew. That'd be something special.
Yeah, until he got hurt. I mean,
until he gets hurt. But man, that offense is already so insane. Like,
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're ever going to see another like full season for McCaffrey? Let's say is he ever going to play another 14 game season?
I don't know. It does have those like sketchy girly vibes, like he's just breaking down and that's going to be it for him.
Because he was super durable before he started getting hurt.
He never missed a game, and he's built like so strong. I mean, I don't know.
But like, do you remember remember when he got hurt? Like, I forget what it was, week 3, week 4, and it was like he's like running and he like high stepped and he like pulled his hamstring, and it's like, all right, you're out for 8 weeks.
Exactly. A lot of them were non-contact injuries. That's what's so like sketchy about them all. I don't think so. No, I honestly, that's why I'm a little bit lower on him. And it's so hard to like, if you're sitting there at pick 5 and he's sitting there, like it's so hard to pass him up because if you do get 14 games out of him, you probably won your title.
Because in week 1, he's going to score 35 points for you, and you're going to be like, think you're like the biggest pimp in the league. And, you're going to be talking shit to everybody. I told you he was the man. And then like 3 weeks later, like he's on the IR.
Exactly. It's so brutal. Like, because it's the number 2 season of all time. Only LaDainian Tomlinson, that one like 37 touchdown season, was more than what McCaffrey did in 2018. Like, it's just
no, like what I dread, I'm telling you right now, Wolf. I have a lot of fantasy nightmares that keep me up at night. I dread getting whatever pick in the draft, 7, 8, something like that, and it rolls around and he's there.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to make that decision.
I know. I don't think he'll make it outside the top 5 though.
You don't think so? Oh, I
no.
do.
Not in the early best ball drafts I've been doing. He's going 2 or 3 every single time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I picked him. I didn't typically take him, but he fell to me at 5. And I was like, well, he usually goes number 2. This is the one time I'm going to take a shot at him. And my team came out fucking filthy. So I'm hoping if he stays healthy, I'm going to win a lot of money. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, I'm pulling for you, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd take him at 5, although I guess I'd have to see the board. I'd rather have Davante Adams.
Well, at this point, yes. Adams. So, yeah, Derrick Henry over him. Derrick Henry's coming off an injury himself. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, God. I guess I would lean Henry. But I know it's tough because there's so much receiving work out of McCaffrey.
Yep.
I don't know. I think I would probably lean Henry, and I'd be kicking myself for it. Look, if they both got, I don't know. I don't know, man. This is terrible. I roll my eyes at some of your rankings, and then when you put me on the spot, I'm like, well, it doesn't sound so crazy.
McCaffrey's sitting there, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. But he's like the hardest player to pass up on. Like, if it's not Kupp and it's not Taylor,
I will say this. When he was playing, it was so fun.
It's the best. I remember texting him, this is why I paid up for him. And then he gets like hurt like a play later. You're like, fuck.
I know. You were like, yeah, Jones, good job.
Yes.
But remember when you had him 2 years ago, you did that. And then he came back. You did that whole video of you jizzing everywhere. Like, so this has been going on. This has been going on. No, you thought he might. And that was enough to get you worked up to
the ultimate.
So we've been talking about this for like 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll sign right back up for it. Keep kicking me in the nuts, Christian. I'll never learn.
Right.
Never learn. Awesome.
Good show.
Well, good show. A lot to cover. I know it wasn't maybe as quick as we said we'd get through each thing, but I don't know that too much was wasted breath. I think we went good points on each of them. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back maybe Thursday. We'll check the schedules. We do want to break down some of these combine prospects and do a little bit of a free agency preview with that on the horizon here. Next week, the free agents will be landing. So exciting stuff here. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already so you don't miss these videos. We'll answer your questions every single time we go live. You can find me personally at Roto Street Wolf, and all our content is at rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. And if you like podcasts, you prefer to listen at work on the podcast, we have the Fantasy Fullback Dive. You can see that logo up there in the corner. You can check us out, subscribe, and review the pod is so appreciated as well. Awesome. I'm the Wolf.
I'm the Truth.
In a world full of fancy sheep guys, be the wolf. Later.